Yeah, hello, I'm Wayne Berry, and welcome to this Top Gun Web TV live broadcast where we're bringing together 5 experts from around the world. We're going to be discussing a really important subject, and that is the subject of life balance. And we have people joining us from various parts of the world. In Sydney and Melbourne, Brisbane, it's 8 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. We have people joining us from New Zealand where it's 10 a.m. and China, it's 6 a.m. in China. Up in Malaysia, it's also 6 a.m. Japan, 7 a.m. London, 11 p.m. or should that be, in fact, midnight? I think maybe 11 p.m. in London. Los Angeles, around about 3 p.m. Chicago, 5 p.m. New York, 6 p.m. And let me introduce our panelists here today and tell you a little bit about them. Firstly, we have Yvonne. Dr. Yvonne Sum. Yvonne is joining us from KL this morning up there in Malaysia, and Yvonne is a specialist in leadership, parenting and balance in life. Coming across here we have Winston Marsh. Now Winston is joining us somewhere from, I believe, a canal in the south of France where life is tough. Good evening to you, Winston, I think. In fact, it's just good morning to you. It's just past midnight there, Winston.
Hello, Wayne. You'll notice I'm wearing my flash pyjamas, it being midnight here in France. Bastille Day too, yeah.
Yes, you were the fireworks there before you were telling us. Thanks for joining us. And Terry Brock. We have Terry Brock over there in Orlando, Florida, and you're looking very chirpy. Where I believe it. What time is it over there?
Right now it is 6:04 in the evening on this Sunday evening here, and we don't have our pajamas ready to go yet, but we're just a few hours behind Winston over there in France.
Yeah, very good. And Michael Gross. Michael is joining us from Melbourne. Michael is an expert in parenting and a renowned author of, I think, 8 books at the last count. Is that right, Michael?
I'll just put another one in. Wayne, we'll make it 9. Sounds good, and I'll round it out to 10 if that makes everyone happy and makes me happy.
Very good. And speaking of books, there's Mr. Glenn Capelli looking extraordinarily learned in front of a bookshelf. Or is it a green screen background, Glenn?
No, indeed, it is my bookshelf. When the builders put this in, we needed extra support in the wall, and they said to me, "What are you going to put in here?" And I said, "It's a bookshelf. I'm going to put books." And they said, "But what else are you going to put in there?" They didn't believe somebody could have so many books. But books are a work of art. A joy to be here, and be great to be part of this team.
And you're joining us from Inverleigh, which I believe is south of Melbourne, in the state of Victoria.
The Golden Plains. So to get balance in your life, I think you need a little bit of bush, bush and beach, and that's what this brings to me: bush and beach.
Very good. And I'm joining you this morning from Brighton, which is at the beach in Melbourne. So look, guys, thanks for your time, and it's all different time zones in different places, and I certainly appreciate you doing this. And the subject, of course, is work-life balance. So I guess a really good question to kick it off here would be, with these different time zones and the fact that you're joining us here this morning, how balanced is your life if it's a really strange time or of day or night? So I guess the question to kick it off would be, how important is life balance? Do you think you do have good life balance? And if so, how did you achieve that? So who would like to kick that off? I might just switch it over to Yvonne there in KL, because you've just had a major shift in your life. You've moved down from Qatar, is it, down to KL just in recent times, and they often say that that's one of the stressful things in life when we make a move like that. So how do you keep your life in balance and do business internationally around the world, Yvonne?
Hi, Wayne. Yes, I have had a major reset in my life. I've been in Qatar for the last couple of years, and it was a great adventure actually for myself and my family. So in terms of being a little bit off kilter, I think I never am totally in balance, because I find that when I'm totally in balance, well, what's the point of moving? So I think I always look for that little bit of chaos, just so that it gives me a little bit of energy. And I think sometimes my children and my husband thinks that that's a ridiculous way of looking at life. But I've taken them on lots of adventures. So right now we have moved to Kuala Lumpur. Well, rather I have, because it's quite an exciting time here where, the Asian economy is kind of booming. And the thought of going back to Sydney seems quite sleepy. My kids have decided, no, Mum, take this one. We're going back to Sydney to school. You can take this one on for 6 months and see whether that's a worthwhile school for us to get there. Right now, we're going home to Sydney. So Ken's taking them across back to Sydney. Now, that's my balanced life.
And that's the way it can be these days. Let's face it, with modern communication and so forth. And we'll talk more about that. You know, having that balance in life, pursuing career, but having good balance with family. And maybe is it, I guess, an acceptable situation where we have family in different parts of the world, even a spouse in another country, for that matter. And can we still have a successful life in doing that? I'll leave you with that thought. We'll come over to the wise man in France, Winston Marsh. Winston, are you awake there? Hello, Winston.
I certainly am, Wayne. Yeah, life balance is never a problem for me. I always remember these 7 habits of highly love. We start with the end in mind. And I've always planned to devote some time to looking after me, looking after the family. And just very quickly, for me to have life in balance, I have 4 things I must do every day. Number 1, I've got to learn something every day, and that's pretty easy. Number 2, I've got to laugh every day. Number 3, I've got to help somebody every day. And 4th, I've got to tell the people I love that I love them every day. Now, those are things I do religiously, and that's the first and most essential part of me keeping my life together. Now, that just doesn't explain the rest. I mean, setting out and making sure I have 8 weeks of holidays a year is very important. Having some ground rules for me to live by, I can check off what I've done, how I've done it. Life balance, I love what I do, and I do what I love. You know, I just reckon it's fantastic. It's not hard to keep life in balance when that's the way things are happening for you. I've stopped, Wayne.
Look, I think that's an important point that you make there. It's whether we see work as work, and I guess some people have jobs that they're not inspired with. But for me, work is not work. Work is play. You know, I play every day doing this. And
Right.
I often say, what on earth would I be like if I had to work for a living? And I've been self-employed now, I guess, for 38 years, since my early 20s, and yeah, it is a choice, and I guess we're fortunate. But you know, as speakers, I guess because of the travel and all of that sort of thing that we're doing, possibly with us, it's even more of a challenge than most people in terms of getting that life balance, because we're traveling, we're often away from our family, we're pursuing a career, and dare I say it, believe it or not, some speakers actually have ego. They think they're important. They read their own brochures. Kept coming across to you, Terry Brock, because you're an international traveller. You certainly do travel a lot. You've just come back from, I think, 5-country tour around the United Kingdom, Europe, and so forth. How do you keep that? And we see all the flags in the background there, so you do travel a lot. How do you keep your life in balance with family and health and all of that sort of thing? Because it can put a lot of stress on us when we travel. A lot of people think traveling is a lot of fun, but when you're constantly on and off airplanes every single day, in and out of hotels, different time zones, different environments, different food, you know, how do we maintain that balance of health and relationships and so forth, Terry?
Yeah, well, you raise a very good point, because we can be off balance at times, and in a way, I think that's all right, as long as you do, like I wrote it down here, notes, and Winston Marsh stole it from me here, you begin with the end in mind. And I think we both got it from Stephen Covey, but that's exactly right. The thing is, we look at what we want to do, and part of that means you are going to be off balance. For example, one of the things I do is I ride a unicycle. And with a unicycle with one wheel, you really have to work on the balance. And you often are off balance because you have to go up a hill, you kind of lean into it. But that's okay. And I think if you're looking on, say, a PhD thesis, you know, or dissertation, you're working on your dissertation and PhD, you're going to be a little off balance. You're going to focus more on that at that time. And that's okay. As long as you're doing what you want to do and maintaining that balance within your life, like Winston talked about the things that he looks at every day, I agree with those. I find 3 that I focus on, that I like to every day do SEM, study, where I'm learning something new, training my mind, reading, or having some fun with that. E, exercise. Make sure that we take care of the body, you know, because if you don't have your health, you don't have much of anything. And then M, meditation, quiet time, and being very focused, and being around the people that you love and letting them know you love them. I think that helps you to be focused and be more in balance over a period of time rather than at any given moment.
Yeah, thanks for the comments, Terry. I think I read somewhere or heard one of my speaker friends say that um, stress tends to be in direct relationship to the level of which we feel we're in control of our life. So the more we feel we're actually in control of our life, the less stress we will have, the more health that we have. People who feel that their life is not under their control, that they're controlled by circumstances or people or career, the stress level tends to be higher. I'll just come across to you, Glenn Capelli, if I may. Glenn, you must be a master of life balance. You do travel a lot. Before we came on air, you were just talking about your life is bush, city, airplanes, audiences. You're often in front of the microphone in a radio program that you're featured in there every week. I must admit I do tune in and have a little listen. Just tell us, how do you do that?
Well, first of all, I think I heard Terry Brock say that he does S&M, and then I realised he said S-E-M, and I was very pleased about that. Listen, I must say that different folks, different strokes, as you well know, Wayne, but there's a wonderful wisdom I picked up in Alaska. Not the first Alaskan wisdom, which is don't eat yellow snow, but the second Alaskan wisdom, and I'd like to teach you it's a little rap, and it goes, variety is the magic key is variety. I've never been all that excited by the word balance, but I get excited by the word variety for me. And if I've got a variety of things happening and a variety of focuses, then I can't get into that obsessive compulsive thing, which I think a lot of driven people can do, and certainly at times in my younger life, it was very much a singular focus. But in the variety, for me, the essential thing is that I have to have some of what I call green time. So I take my coloured crayons and I take my green crayons and I colour in green time. And green time means that I've got hours or days where there's no devices, where Lindy and I, my wife and I, who not only are married but run a business together, that we don't talk shop. We don't talk business. We almost encourage each other to spend time in this moment of now. And bush and beach are just vital for my green time. So if I get a little bit stressed, chances are I haven't been to the bush and I haven't been to the beach. So remember what your green things are and make sure you're doing them.
Yeah, good advice there. So it's all about variety then, as you see it, Glenn. We'll come across to Michael Gross. Michael, it must be, and let me say, I'm a parent with four kids, ranging right now as I speak from age 16 through to age 34. So I've seen all of the different stages of child rearing, and it must be a tremendous challenge, particularly for parents of younger children, how to get that balance in their life with children. It is so important. What are your thoughts around that? Because, I mean, you travel, you present at a lot of seminars. You must talk about this life balance question when you talk about child being a good parent.
Yeah, I guess my son now is a parent, so we're actually providing him with some life balance over the weekend. While he was off celebrating his 30th birthday, we were looking after the kids, the young ones. So I guess we're doing what our grandparents did or our parents did for us. So it is important that the kids, if you're raising kids, you've got to get away. But from all angles, I think we've sort of talked about the 3 and the 4. My psychology background tells me that healthy people always mix between 4 things to try and keep your personal life, which is about your personal energy, focus a little bit around work, focus on family, and focus on friends. So those 4 areas. So I've noticed with my son, he's very focused like me on work. So I'm always sort of pulling him out of the work angle and putting him into the friendship angle, or what are you doing for your personal life? So those 4 areas are real drags. So as we've sort of said, that notion of balance is, I don't think we're ever in balance, but it's more on, what juices you up, where do you get your energy from? And so from a psychology point of view, I always use those 4 angles. So back to your point, yeah, for mums and dads raising kids, I think it's often for women it's a lot harder to get in that sort of personal life. blokes can often find their way around that a little bit easier. But yeah, it is important, that notion of trying to sort of work your way around those 4 different areas, and also get some energy around your own life as well.
Yeah, look, I think some really good advice somebody once gave me was, they said the best thing you can do for your family is to be healthy yourself, psychologically healthy, physically healthy. I think probably it is right. It is important that we take care of ourselves. And
yeah,
we all have different ways of relaxing or getting what it is that we want from life. I need a lot of stimulation. I enjoy it. I'm a little bit like Winston. I like to learn something every day. I like to have a highly stimulating environment. Some people, when they go on holidays, they just want to lay on the beach and do nothing. I'm sorry, I do a little bit of that, but I want to do all sorts of other things there. So I tend to live my life at a million miles an hour. And yeah, look, the truth is sometimes my family do think I'm a little bit crazy, but for me, that's what works. But still having that balance and spending time with our family and showing the people that we love and care some time is really, really important. I've got some questions that have been sent in to me in advance here. I might just throw some of these questions to you guys and get your comments on this, because we had enormous response to the topic. There's obviously an awful lot of interest out there, because I know my organisation, we specialise in sales, marketing, and we deal with a lot of fairly high achievers in sales and in business. And of course, it is a real challenge as to how you keep that life balance happening. So I've received an email here from Julie in Kenmore East in Queensland, who says, I'm building my business into a full-time concern from a part-time concern, alongside working part-time as an employee in a few from-home jobs to supplement the change. How do I discipline myself to not devoting every spare hour into building my business, and also not giving vital business building time to my employers, who often seek more? I'm notoriously bad at saying no. So I think, again, Julie's looking at, how does she get that balance there? How does she move into a business of her own whilst not neglecting her employer and also spending time with family? I guess we're all self-employed, so we understand the demands there in being self-employed. Anyone got some thoughts on for Julie as to what she might do?
I'll give it a try.
Yeah, Michael.
Okay, I'll go first then. I guess we've all... Hi, Yvonne, you're looking good. Wayne, who's going?
You're on screen, Michael.
All right, okay. All right, I didn't realise that. I think we've all experienced that. One of the issues around, if you're going to be with you at home, you've got to be there for psychologically as well as physically. Sometimes we're there physically, but we're ahead somewhere else. So one tip which I've used is the notion of... And I learned this term from a fellow called Michael Grinder. Some of you have heard of Michael, and he talked about decontamination. So when I'm at home, I make sure that I change clothes. So I have a different set of clothes for work and a different set of clothes for home. So when I do come home, I'm really focused on exactly where I am. And the second thing is I have a work phone, which I'll never ever answer. I've got 2 mobiles. So again, that's a little trick where I'll answer one mobile, which is the work one. I'll have the work voice on, and when I've got the other mobile, I know it's from outside of work. So that's a little trigger. I have these triggers around clothing, around location. So I'm in my office now, even though my home's about 2 minutes away. I'll always come into work to do work. And there's certain places at home where we won't work at all. So the kitchen table never ever work, because it contaminates it with work. So the kitchen table's a place where you just have your family stuff, because location tends to carry memory. So there's 2 little points which will enable that listener to make sure that when she's actually with her family or in her own time, that the sort of mind won't wander off back to the workplace.
Yeah, well, one of my mentors, James Rowan, always used to say, wherever you are, be there. And by that he meant, if you're at the beach with the family, be psychologically at the beach with the family. He used to talk about the dilemma of being at the office thinking, I really ought to spend more time at the beach. And while he's at the office, he's thinking of the beach. He finally goes to the beach with the family, and now he's thinking, I really should be at the office. I shouldn't be here at the beach. So wherever you are, be there. So I think this is what you're talking about. Compartmentalize your life, Michael. Have anchors. And it's I don't know about you, but I find it amazing that I'm sitting with friends, we're talking about something, and they'll answer their phone, and it's a business call, and suddenly they're away on a business call. What do you think about that discipline? I think you spoke about that before, about phone calls, emails. What about people who are constantly looking at their phone, checking their emails, checking their SMS, checking Facebook, and they're not really with the people that they're with?
Yeah.
That's kind of what you're talking about, Michael?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. And it's around disciplines. It's a strange one. I work with my wife, and when we will leave the office and we'll go home, and if we've still got something to talk about, we'll stay in our work clothes and we'll finish it off, and then suddenly that's bang, we'll go and get changed, and then the discipline around it is we don't talk about work until the next day. So it is pretty much around that physical discipline, also a mental discipline as well as pulling your thoughts back into where you're going. I think mindfulness is a fantastic thing to practice, which is that ability to just to be in the moment. I do that often when I walk. I won't take anything and put it in my ears. I'll just walk, and mindfulness is a practice thing where you just imagine yourself. You don't imagine yourself, you're just in that actual moment. And that's a great way of clearing your brain. And a lot of people who are entrepreneurial, working for themselves, the brain just never switches off. So I think we've got to learn a way of switching off the brain to give yourself, whether it's 5 minutes, whether it's 30 minutes of freedom, so to speak, and it's very liberating. And that's, again, I guess, as you just said earlier, that's a discipline, and that discipline for me is mindfulness and practicing that.
Okay, and I'm just looking at another message I got here from Paul Smart. Paul Smart's been a client of ours for a really long time. Hello, Paul. I know you're watching with your team this morning. He was asking the same thing about the majority of people bring home issues to work, work issues to home. What are the switch-on techniques? What are the switch-off techniques? And I think we've spoken a little bit about that. Can I come across to you, Yvonne, particularly as a woman, if I dare say that? Maybe you can relate to what Julie's talking about there. Have you got any further advice for Julie before we perhaps move on?
Yeah, I want to carry on from what Michael was saying, and that is I have a technique as well, because being a woman, we're usually accused of being able to multitask. I don't believe in that, because when you multitask, you actually lose everybody. So I've got a technique called OOPS. OOPS stands for observe. Okay, what's happening in the moment? Is it going towards my outcome, whatever that might be, either in the moment or in a greater outcome of, some goal that I'm setting? Am I being present? Because if I'm not, then I need to stay present. So that's the oops. Now, if I don't, then I've got to change and come back. So oops is kind of a nice little trigger for me. I do like to be a little bit off balance. I do like to be a little bit, as Glenn was saying, I love the variety. But I have to actually stay on course. So when I'm home with the children, and kids are great because they're very great models of being present, because they always want it and they want it now. So I think, well, what is it that I want now with my people? So I'll park everything from work if I'm at home. And the greatest compliment I think when I've had from my children is, Mom, because of what you do, we don't get a lot of you, we don't get a lot of time, but when you're there with us, it's qual, Mum. Qual means quality. It's qual, Mum. And I think that's really important. And I think if that's the greatest compliment from children, that's what we need to do with our work. So Julie, if you're with your employer, be totally present. Be present to their goals, so whatever that they want to be, stay on that course and observe and get those outcomes. If you're with your own work, do the same. If you're with your family, enjoy them. Be present. That's the whole mindfulness thing that Michael talks about.
Yeah, so that's some good advice from Yvonne. Anyone else got any thoughts before we take another question here? Anyone else?
I know Glenn here, and Daniel Goleman, the emotional intelligence man, his most recent book, if you want to find one for your bookshelf, is Focus. The ability to stay, as everyone has been saying, to stay with the bit that you're actually doing at the time. For me, how I do it, I guess I like colours. So if I've got green time, I've also got orange time, and that comes from the Buddhist saying, when you eat a mandarin, eat the mandarin. So when you're actually eating a meal, savour the meal. So I would just say to people, for some folk it'll work in big orange lettering. You write a little statement to yourself that says something like, when you eat an orange, eat the orange. You do it as a poster on your fridge, and you carry around a little mandarin for a few days. And every time you're going off track and you're not being present in that moment, you just squeeze the mandarin, and then later you get to eat it. There's little physical ways and little colourful ways that you can give yourself techniques. No technique works for everyone, but find your technique, find your oops or your mandarin or your green time to be able to work for you.
Very important.
Now you're a songwriter, Glenn, as well, and I know music is really important to you, and you have a session on Melbourne radio station 3RW, I think on a weekly basis, where it's called Thinking Caps, as I recall, and part of that is the music. How important is music, do you think, in terms of being an anchor, psychological anchor to relaxation, or music has got me fascinated totally in life. What is it? Why is it that we love music?
Brilliant question. I'm glad you mentioned Thinking Caps. So there's some of our radio pieces in book form, but and music for me, I have a rhythm method in my life. I think in rhythms, so for me, if I'm listening to music that's got lyrics, my ideas are going a million miles an hour. So for me to relax and calm, it's better to be playing songs that are sung in French if I don't understand French, or sung in Italian, although I know enough Italian to get me thinking, or listen to music for its own sake rather than music with lyrics. Because as soon as lyrics come in there, my mind is going off in ideas, how to use this, what can I do? But music is such a powerful thing for a lot of human beings. And just as I think you should have a soundtrack for your life, for, what's that song that revs you up? What's your Eye of the Tiger? What's the one that gets you going? You should also have that Pachelbel's canon or whatever it is that just calms you. And as Michael Gross was saying, maybe it's the table gives a physical metaphor that you do calm. That piece of music can be an oral audio, and as soon as you hear it, you're into calm. And you're just spending time listening to the music, being in the music, and breathing in time to the music. And that's part of that being there physically. It's a musical way to eat your orange and taste it at the same time.
Okay, thanks. Winston, I'd like to come across to you. I realise it's really late at night. I trust you're still awake there, sir. You deal with a lot of marketing people and small, medium-sized business operators who have enormous challenges on their time. And I know you and I have appeared on many programs together over the years. What advice do you have around that balance in life and time?
Wayne, I think only Terry's mentioned it, but a very important thing, and I know I can have music and me time and all that sort of stuff, but a bit of exercise is pretty good. I've found that that's been critical in my life. I like to go for a run in the morning, although as I age, perhaps it's a fast walk. I do get passed by little old ladies on Zimmer frames. But I think having exercise and having it as part of your life is very, very important, because it gives you a chance to put your mind into free will. It's amazing how I can go out and think lots of things and find solutions. And I never wear earphones or anything like that. I hate the idea of going for a run and, listening to music. I mean, there's so much music out there in nature that and I want to hear the car that hits me as well. So I think it's critical that we all put some exercise into what we do. And thinking about Julie, one thing we just haven't mentioned is having a bit of a plan. We've talked about starting with the end in mind, but she wants to make that business happen. That's an important part of her life. So she really needs to say, look, every day I'll put 2 hours into doing this. And rather than just, a little bit here and a little bit there, just consistently plan her time, give her the boss what they expect, but then she can give that 2 or 3 hours to building a business. She'll get a lot of satisfaction and it'll work. Sometimes we spend a lot of time doing things but achieving very little. So I think it's important. I say to people that I deal with, listen, if you want to start doing some marketing, don't try and do it all at once. Don't try and build it in a week. Just set aside 2 hours a day or an hour a day, and it's amazing what happens. So for Julie, I'd like to think that you decide how much time you're going to spend and then spend it very effectively. And my tip for everybody, if you don't want to go out for exercise, get yourself a dog, because your dog will make sure you do. Very important. Get out there and enjoy life, enjoy the fresh air. You'll find it works wonders.
Indeed, and the dog will remind us every day that we need to do that exercise. Just on that
Wonderful.
point, yeah, just on that point you're talking about, Winston, I think many of us know Dr. Janet Hall, who is joining us today from France. She's somewhere in France, but I heard from her, she said she wanted to tune in today. She may be on a future panel coming up there. But I remember Janet many, many years ago when she had a very, very busy practice, psychology practice, and she wanted to become a professional speaker, and she spoke about, how to position herself in the marketplace. And I said, well, how about writing a book? And her immediate response is, look, I'm a single mother. I really don't have time to write a book. I think I should. And I simply said to Janet at the time, could you possibly get up a half an hour earlier every day and write a page for your book? Could you possibly get up 1 hour earlier every day and write a page or two for your book? And that's exactly what she did, and I don't know what her last count is, but she wrote that first book, I think, inside of 12 months, published it. It changed everything about her business, and it's like you're saying, Winston, it's put in the time, it's make the time to have a plan to make the time to take you to where you wish to be in the future, because if we don't have a plan, and we continue to be a part of somebody else's plan, we'll end up where they want us to be rather than where we want to be. Life will just simply pass us by, and in 12 months' time we surely will arrive, but we may arrive where we don't wish to be if we don't actually have the plan. So any thoughts on that, guys? Planning?
And Wayne, just getting out of bed half an hour earlier every day, it's amazing how much you can achieve. That half hour of quiet time is fantastic. I can see Terry nodding. I know he does it when he's been at my place. He gets up early and uses it. Fantastic. And I think that's real value.
Yeah, if I could mention something, I think it's very important to have that plan. I would say to Julie, operate in silos. Do this here. You're working for the employer right now, and you want to have the times for you. Have times where you do that, and there's a very important word you want to learn, Julie, and that word is no. And matter of fact, emphatically, no. You might even put a few other colorful military terms around that. But no, we don't do that. And you say, this is what I will do, this is what I won't. Because there's so many options, particularly today. You look at the internet, I mean, wow, there's all kinds of great, groovy, nifty things out there to do. And if you keep saying yes, you're not going to achieve your goals. You got to learn to focus on those activities that are the most important. And I find a good practical way to do that is every day, at the end of that day, sit down, take a few moments, and plan tomorrow. Write it down, put it in your computer, your iPad, or whatever you're going to use, and plan that day for tomorrow, knowing what you're going to do and what you're not going to do, and learn to say no until your tongue bleeds. Keep doing it that way, and you'll be in much better shape.
Yeah, yep. Some good advice there. Hey, I've got another question here from actually Jonathan Wan, S-W-A-N, in Hong Kong. Jonathan says, my spouse wants me to go out every day and conquer the business world, get a promotion, make more money, have the good life for the family, but says, be home by 6 p.m. I find be home by 6 p.m. a little hard to reconcile with what she wants me to achieve. Any suggestions? How do I conquer the world between 9 till 5 or 6? I don't know. This is, and this is, this is not always something that a woman is saying to a man. Often, in these days of high-powered women, men are saying, hey, could you please be home early? So how do we do that? How do we achieve that balance? You're all laughing here now.
Wayne, I tried that once, and I was pulling my hair out. And look what happens when you try that. It doesn't work. So you got to realize, wait a minute, there's a thing called reality here, and you got to do some things. You can do it, but then he might not be home at 6 unless that's 6 in the morning. So leaving that there. So I think you got to learn to do a realistic assessment of what you can do. Put the silos. Some nights it might be he's not going to be home at 6. Other times he can be. So make your plan and live your life according to your balance. Balance is up to you. You decide what's right, and that's where I think Jonathan and wife need to have a little talk on that one.
If I can come in there, Wayne, to me it also resonated that sometimes it's really nifty if somebody gives us a constraint in life. So it's only when we get constrained sometimes that it breeds a creativity to go, okay, if they were the rules, if I had to be kingpin in the business world but I could only work from 9 to 5, geez, how would I go about that? How would I make sure? So sometimes the constraint it can be a beautiful gift to breed the creativity to go, okay, well, how am I going to go about that? What are we going to do? And give yourself a period of time where you stick to that constraint. and you think that way you're coming up with alternatives and alternatives and alternatives. And sometimes in that constraint you'll get to a better solution. So he should say thank you to his wife.
Yeah. Can I add something to that from a woman's perspective?
Please do, yes.
Yeah, I think she was, the wife is great to have a plan. I think we're talking about plans, but plans also need to be discussed. I've just come off a project, an assignment in Qatar, where we just opened the new Doha Hamad International Airport. And that opening had been delayed from 2008 to 2012. To 2013, April Fool's Day. Of course, they didn't open. And finally, they went fully operational in May this year. Now, what happened was by the time I got to the senior executive team that I was coaching, they were basically so flustered. Like, when will they move that date again? So because it'd been moving so much, they didn't get creative, as Glenn said. You know, they think, oh, well, if we don't get it done, it will be moved. So one of the things that I said was, creativity happens in the strictest boundaries. So when you have a plan, be flexible. You become even more flexible within that plan. And we need to meet all the stakeholders' needs, but within that plan. And I think Hamad International Airport was opened with more contingency plans than plans, because when the plan didn't work, we just had another plan. And it was exactly what Glenn said. I think we need to have a plan, but we need to relate to how all those plans sit together. And that's the beauty of creativity and flexibility.
Okay, good thought. Good thought. Anyone else anything to add there? Okay, look, I've got a question for you guys. Now that I'm, 49, people keep saying to me, "When are you going to retire, Wayne? You don't really need to keep doing this every day, do you? I mean, how much is enough, and when are you going to retire?" So I'd be curious as to how everyone feels about that thought of retirement. Let me state my feelings about it up front. I have no intentions of retiring. I've looked at the statistics, and people tend to die fairly soon after they retire. Yet I know some of our colleagues, people like James Rowan, one of my mentors for so many years, 30 plus years, Zig Ziglar, who passed away just recently. I mean, they were active psychologically, physically, constantly on the go and having fun, because I don't ever think I work any day. I don't work. It's constantly fun. So I have no plans to sort of slow down or retire. In fact, I get a little bit faster now that I'm getting older. And the truth is, many young people around me, including my family, cannot keep up with me. They get exhausted. But I had a bit of a health challenge a few years ago, and I was told, in fact, I shouldn't even be here today. I should have gone to God some time ago. So I look at every single day as a bonus on the planet. It's completely changed my perspective, and I think, well, what would I do if I had all the time in the world? I'd do exactly what I'm doing now. I might do it in a different location, and that's part of the flexibility that we now have from technology, and my plans to sail more and spend time doing that sort of thing with the people I really care about. But I would find retirement extraordinarily boring. Do you think that sometimes people do lose purpose in life after they retire, and it's not the happiness that they thought it was going to be? Any thoughts about that, retirement?
I'll jump in on that, being the youngest member of the team.
Thank you for pointing that out.
Now that you're legal drinking age, Yvonne.
I love you too, Terry. Well, I think I was having this discussion with my father, who should be retired at 65. He's now 75. Fit as a fiddle. He's got a six-pack abs that he shows me all the time. And Glenn, you've met Jerry. You know what he's like. He eats like a horse. But what he said was, I was quite worried about retirement, because he said I would no longer have status or purpose. My life would be less meaningful, because when I was working, Jerry could do something for other people. So I not only have a purpose for myself, but for others. So I guess one of the key things you just mentioned, Wayne, is that if we actually know what is meaningful to us and that we have a purpose, then it doesn't matter whether you're retired or whether you're juggling, three things like Julie is. I think you need to align your life to your values. So whether you're retiring, you're working, you're a mother juggling 3 jobs, it might be worthwhile to actually think about what's important to you and balance it with, as I'm doing this in the present moment, is it in sync with my values? If that is meaningful to me, if it is about, achieving a goal right now and that's important to me, then live with it. If it's about spending time with those that I love, it's doing things that I love, it is actually creating things in the world that I love, then do that. So I think it is about being able to be purposeful and having a meaningful idea of where you're heading. That's my 2 cents worth.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'd say, Wayne, that we've got to flow. We've got to bring in Csikszentmihalyi's flow here. All the research about happy, healthy human beings when we're in flow. And every time I work with a CEO, I would say you've got to have some flow things in work, stuff that you just love to do, where time zips by. It's what you're talking about in loving what you do, what Winnow talks about. But also you've got to have some stuff that brings you flow that's outside of your work. So happy, healthy people, they say that I'm going to go on a holiday and do nothing, but on their holiday they're out in the back shed building a boat. They've got something that brings them excitement and pleasure that they're not getting paid for, but they just love doing it. And I think flow in work and flow outside of work, and the wonderful research, Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, Cikzen in there as well, well worth looking up and having a listen to and having a read of. Flow.
Okay, good. Anyone else any thoughts there?
Yeah,
Retirement.
I'm glad you raised that one. I'm getting to it.
Michael.
Yes, thank you. I need to identify myself. Michael, I've been thinking about that for quite a while, and it's an interesting one. I've just come off a week's holiday where I've seen a lot of what we call in Australia grey nomads who are travelling around and people who've retired, and it doesn't look all that attractive to me, that notion. But I think it is about, and I mentioned the word energy, as I'm getting more to the pointy end of work, I'm now choosing jobs and doing things which energise me and don't sort of take away my energy. I'm also very conscious of not putting too much, attaching too much meaning into my work. So I think that the notion if I stopped doing what I was doing tomorrow, I'd still want to have my identity intact. So it's separating that person from the position is really important. So I see a lot of people who continue to work because that's who they are, and they can't sort of disengage from that work aspect. I'm the marketing person, I'm the parenting person, I'm the this person, and when they don't want to separate from that. So I'm very conscious of doing things and putting things in place in my life, like having sport, which I enjoy, doing volunteering, doing some other things, and I'm very conscious of having a group of friends outside of my profession that I can go away to and spend some time with, whom they wouldn't know I'm a speaker, they don't know I'm a parenting person or not. It's irrelevant to them. So I think that notion is important, that you can disengage you don't get too much of your personal meaning from your work. I think that's a real loser in many ways.
Very important.
Yeah, let me raise an issue which is a very major challenge in today's modern society, and that is the area of mental health. It's said in Australia right now, 1 in 4 people, adults, are suffering from some mental illness, and of course depression, anxiety, these sort of things are major issues, and can affect anyone in any walk of life. I should declare my own situation here. Around about 7 or 8 years ago, I had essentially what in the old terms used to be called a nervous breakdown. I didn't even know what was happening. I used to joke from the platform about the importance of attitude, and it'll be, how could you possibly have a depressed motivational speaker? And I became one. I became clinically depressed, didn't quite know why it had happened. It was extraordinarily serious in my life. It took me out for quite some period of time, and I had to change my life at that stage. And I actually spent time, and I don't mind saying, because I don't believe there should be a stigma around mental illness these days, I spent time in a psychiatric hospital, which was kind of interesting, in that many of the people I met in there were high achievers, extraordinary high achievers. There were doctors, there were accountants, there were lawyers, there were business people. And what I noticed there was it tended to be the high achievers who were suffering from depression, anxiety, those kind of things. And I wondered at the time whether it's the high achievers who will not stop, because I certainly was a person who would not stop. Somebody would say, slow down, I'd say, get out of my way, you know, I'm coming through, don't tell me it can't be done, I will do it. Whether high achievers tend to break rather than bend and have that flexibility, because something I noticed was that some people who take a more casual approach to life, they're not perhaps as high achieving. When the going gets tough, they stop. No, I'm not saying we should, but they stop and they don't suffer from that that stress as much as high achievers. So, what's your take on depression, anxiety, mental illness, those sort of things, and how do we protect against that? Because I'm very conscious of it these days, and I do certain things every single day to ensure that I don't fall back into that hole. It's a very deep, dark hole, and it's a terrible place to be if you have ever been there. So, what's everyone's thoughts on mental illness, depression, those sort of things?
Well, can I take that one again? Because I think one of the key things is actually recognizing that depression and getting some treatment. And first of all, when I think all of us probably have done some executive coaching at some point, and a lot of those high-achieving executives probably have not had the recognition of it, and there is probably something like as much as 80% undiagnosed clinical depression. And they're happily high achievers. And I'll use my own case as well. So Wayne, you've been in psychiatric. Well, I actually didn't recognize that I need psychiatric treatment, but when I was so busy in Sydney juggling, my job, trying to be a high-achieving mom, being all things to everyone, I realized that I was probably doing things I should do because I was seen as successful by others. But I didn't really ask myself what it is that I wanted. So on the outside, I was this happy, very successful woman with a great family. But it took me actually going away to Qatar for 2 years, where if you live in Doha, it's basically the desert and I. There's nothing in there outside of, in a way, the work and the family. So you actually learn to look inward and meditate. So I think I've done more yoga, meditation, and walks in the desert, where it was all about an internal reflection. And I started to realize I could actually start to sift out what it is that is important to me as a person that makes me do what I love rather than what I think other people love. And I think I got myself out of it before I got into a psychiatric situation where I needed to visit my psychiatrist. So I think Qatar, that sojourn in Qatar saved me, saved my family. And right now, like I said, I chose to come to Kuala Lumpur because it was something I wanted to do. And I think if I have now found that my children actually recognize that they wanted to go to Sydney, and we talked about it quite comfortably about what's important to us. So they spent those 2 years in the desert with me, and we could actually have a communication about what we wanted. And so we set the context that they'll do their school, I'll do my work, and we'll find a way of being present when we get together. It's tabs of quality time with the flexibility for me to fly in when I need to see them, which I will from work, and for them to come out whenever they feel like it as well. And I think that is what you talk about. We sometimes do things for others and forget to find that time to find out what we want to achieve for ourselves. And I think being present, oops, what is it that I want, is just as important than, oops, I'm doing it for someone else.
Yeah, and anyone else got... Yeah, anyone else got some thoughts on that?
Maximizers, satisfiers. So maximizers and satisfiers, big high achievers often are maximizers. Everything done to 100%. Absolutely doing a job, everything's done to 100%. Sometimes we've got to learn in today's world, Barry Schwartz's research tells us, good plain common sense, you can't do 100% at absolutely everything. So a maximizer, somebody who does everything at 100%, that full pace that you were talking about for yourself, Wayne, you've got to learn sometimes to be really good at 70%. You know, Joseph Heller, who spent 5 years paralyzed with an insidious disease because he was needed to slow down, perhaps. The chap who wrote Catch-22, Kurt Vonnegut Jr. said to him one day, see that chap over there, Joseph? All the money you earned on Catch-22, the book sales, the film and everything, all the money you earned, that guy earned it in 1 week as a hedge fund manager. And Joseph Haller looked at Kurt and said, yes, but I've got something he'll probably never have. And Kurt said to him, well, what's that? And he said, enough. Enough, just finding your enough. And sometimes you've got to have some things in your life where 70% is enough. Get good at doing 70%. Maximise the 70% is usually better than most other people's 100%.
Good point, Glenn.
Good point. Anyone else, any thoughts on that?
Yeah,
go ahead, Michael.
No, sorry, Terry. You're first. I've had a few guys.
Oh, no, that's all right. Well, I was just going to reiterate what Winston said, and I mentioned one of the keys for getting rid of the depression is exercise. There's something magical that happens when you're doing it right, and get a medical professional to prescribe a program for you. You know, do that, and I think that by looking at that and working carefully with medical professionals, we can do a lot. And being able to have that and be able to look at what we want to do and be able to see a lot of the good in many different areas is really what will matter. Michael?
Yeah, really good points. That whole notion of mental health is around good sleep habits, good eating habits, good exercise habits, and good life habits, and also making sure you've got some fun in your life. But also another take on that, a lot of driven people live their lives in their head, not so much within their body or their feelings. And I've been involved with Yale Centre for Emotional Intelligence since March, and I'll be finishing in October. 6 months study at looking at my own emotional life, and I check in 3 times a day, and that data is actually collected. One of the interesting things is that it's made me very conscious of how I feel, and then as soon as I get a sort of feeling around that, then I can shift it. I can make a decision and go, yes, I'm feeling energized, I want to stay there, no, I want to shift it. And that's been almost very liberating. I think we've all got to get a little bit smarter at not always living in our heads, but sort of living in our hearts and being able to detect how you're feeling and also being able to move that. So that notion around what we call anxiousness and anxiety, anxiousness is not such a bad thing. It's just a bad thing when it gets out of control. So being able to have some sort of control around that is important. So the Yale Centre for Emotional Intelligence is looking at how we can all get better at recognising our own how we feel, because most of us live our lives in our head rather than in our hearts, and it's been an interesting exercise for me. So I'm sort of learned a lot around emotional intelligence as a way of making sure that I've got good mental health.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that, Michael.
And Wayne, can I just...
Yeah, we know.
Wayne, can I just add something to all of that?
Please.
I'm known for always being fantastic. On the days I'm not, I'm still fantastic. And I reckon it's just my positive mental attitude that really works wonders for me. You know, what do they say? Fake it until you make it. But I've always been fantastic. I remember I had to do a presentation the day my dad died. He died at 4:20, but I couldn't go on and say, oh, normally I'm pretty good at it, I'm a bit sad. I just said, I'm fantastic, and, you know, it works. So every day of my life I get out of bed, and it doesn't matter how bad or good things are, fantastic works for me.
Look, I would agree with that, and I'm well known for saying, hey, have a great day, make it a great day. And I'm a great believer in that affirmation. However, my observation and around this is that if we truly are suffering from clinical depression, having a positive attitude is better than having a negative attitude, but in my experience it didn't make enough difference. And I remember I promised myself, I did a deal with God as well. I said, if I can ever come out of this deep hole I'm in, and I was very, very bad, I will open my mouth and I will use my position to tell people who are suffering from mental illness or this challenge of depression that there is hope, that it is possible. to turn it around, because I was in such a bad place that it looked so bad that I didn't think I'd ever find a way out. And you know, it was a challenge. So my advice for anyone who is suffering in any way from this is seek help, see a professional. If your car wasn't working, you take it to a professional to have a look under the hood. Same thing if this brain is not working, and my observation is that mental illness is physical. That might sound a little bit strange, but for me, from what I understood, is it happened because the brain wasn't producing the chemicals. It just wasn't working properly. And then they go supplementing that with chemicals and drugs and so forth, so supposedly to correct it, which can make it worse. I'm completely drug-free these days, thank goodness. But get help, get professional help. I'm a great admirer of Beyond Blue here in Australia, which is an initiative started off by ex-Victorian Premier Jeff Kennett. And Beyond Blue, well worth Googling that, having a look at that if you're having any challenges in that area, but get professional help. It's the major thing that we can do for the people that we love, is to take care of our own health. It's coming up to time, and we said we'd keep this under 60 minutes, so I might come over to each of you for any final thoughts on this. And also, if anyone wants to contact you, we will have your contact details. This is being recorded. It will be available for replay on demand. And below the video will in fact be all of your contact details, so people can contact you if they'd like information about what it is that you do, information on your books, your audio programs, your live programs, those sorts of things. So I might just go down the line here. Any final thoughts around life balance from anyone? Who'd like to kick it off? Polite. Look at that. I'll volunteer you, Yvonne, with your big smile there in KL. What are your any final thoughts here on this life balance mix? And thanks for being with us today.
Again, I think the takeaway message is, first of all, it begins with yourself. So make sure you do what you love. If you actually know what you love and what's meaningful, I think it will stimulate the right chemicals in your body. I think it's also important to understand when you don't love something and be able to say no. And that is being able to sort of go away from the things that could cause you to do things for others. So take care of yourself first, and then take care of the world.
Thank you. Coming over to you, Winston Marsh, for any final thoughts you have there before you tell us to have a fantastic day.
We're not here for a long time. We're here for a good time. And I think if you plan what you're going to do in your life and you stick to it, you'll be amazed at what you can achieve and how good you'll feel about doing it. If you don't like what you're doing now, then for heaven's sake, change it. You can't blame anybody else for where you're at or what's happening. Just make the decision, change it. Life can be fantastic.
Absolutely, absolutely. Terry Brock over there in Florida, any final thoughts?
I think when you look at the whole concept of life balance, working, living, remember that we are working all the things. One of the things I love what you mentioned about retirement. Retirement is something that we really don't do today. I wish I would have said this. My friend Randy Gage talks about hearing that we really are artists at what we do. We're artists, and artists never retire. And so we keep going. We keep enjoying life. Lay out the plans. Get help. Get the professional help in many areas in your life. Have fun, because life is just too dang short. We need to keep going, have fun, and make it better for as many people as we can.
Well, thanks for joining us, Terry. As we can see, www.terrybrock.com if you'd like more information about what it is that Terry does. Terry is a specialist in technology and all sorts of ways of making our life easier by using technology. We're coming over to Michael for any final thoughts there, Michael.
Yeah, look, I'll go back to what we talked about earlier, is wherever you are, be there. If you're going to be at work, be there and be really efficient. I like that notion of if you're going to finish at 6 and work hard, but after that, then make sure you've got something in place for yourself, and that's around discipline. Make sure when you're with your family, you're with them, and make sure that you've got some stuff for yourself. And that's, for me, it's sport. For you out there, you've got to find out what energizes you, and then be a bit selfish. As we said, no's. Learn how to say no, and even saying no to your kids, saying no to your spouse, and saying, no, this is my half hour, this is my hour, because we know that we need to energize ourselves if we're going to help others. So, yeah, that's being a little bit selfish, and also remembering those 4 areas of having something in your work life, something in your social life which juices you up, something in your family life, and also something in your personal life as well which juices you up. Stick to the 4 and you'll be safe.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. Michael's got a great email newsletter that comes out. I get it all the time. Is it called? Parenting or something? Forgive me for
yeah,
not remembering.
Happy kids, you'll get it at parentingideas.com.au. We've got about 29,000 subscribers there. Every week it'll come out. So parentingideas.com.au and Happy Kids is the newsletter.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. And Glenn, any final thoughts from Glenn there?
I had the joy of spending 18 months of my life living on a kibbutz in the north of Israel, and I used to do all kinds of mundane jobs. And I think mundane jobs, when you live your life conceptually, mentally, fast-paced like we do, then it's great to have some mundane stuff in your life. It keeps you grounded. Get out into nature, chop wood, carry water, spend time in nature and doing real things. And if you can't chop wood and carry water, iron your own shirts. Do your own dishes and enjoy that moment. Keep yourself grounded.
Okay, thank you, Glenn, and thank you to all of the members of our panel for taking the time to join us here today, and whatever time it happens to be where you are watching this right now. Remember, this is available on replay, on demand. You can, in fact, come back to this exact same link and view it later on. Also, you can view this, I believe it will be available at every one of our panelists' website. So if you've been introduced to this by Glenn or Michael or Terry or Winston or Yvonne, go back to them, find out a link where you can watch it at their website as well, pass it along to your friends. Good ideas are meant to be shared. This is a non-commercial broadcast that we do, as all of our Top Gun Web TV events are. We don't do it to make money. We do it to deliver value to our clients, our friends, people that we care about. We believe it's important to do this kind of thing and take care of the people that we care about and give. And I very much appreciate the fact that our panelists have given up their time this morning, sometimes in very strange times of day in these different parts of the world. Appreciate you doing it, guys. Hopefully you may join us for a future broadcast where we do another subject that I think that you might be able to contribute to. So thank you. And Winston, you have a fantastic day. Everyone else, have a great day. Make it a great day. It will be the day that you make it. Bye for now.